Uncut Gems follows about a week in the life of gambling addict and jewelry store owner Howard Ratner as he makes bet after bet in the hopes of getting out from underneath a massive debt that he owes to some, let's call them, unsavory fellows. Mix in equal parts anxiety, Adam Sandler remembering how to act, and Lakeith Stanfield showing us that he's having one of the best years ever, and you've pretty much got Uncut Gems down to a T. Uncut Gems is directed by the Safdie Brothers, who are best known for their previous film, Good Times, which you can watch on Netflix right now. It's got Robert Pattinson being a bank robber in New York, and it's pretty good. It's got some good stuff in it. I would suggest watching it if you haven't already. In the past, when it comes to talking about films and forming areas of discussion for them, I've generally relied on looking at either the narrative or the style of the film. But in the case of Uncut Gems, it seemed like there was something else that was more interesting that we could discuss. If you look at the narrative, it's good, but it's not something that we are not used to. And if you look at the style, it's pretty typical for what the Safdie brothers have become known for. I'm sure there is a lot of discussion points that you could have around it, but to me, it just wasn't the most interesting thing. What actually stood out for me was the performance of Adam Sandler, and not in the ways that people have been talking about it so far. I was really interested in how Uncut Gems fit into Adam Sandler's career as a whole. Sandler has had an astonishing career, both in terms of diversity and quality. So for this discussion, we are specifically going to look at Sandler's career and how it can help inform our own reactions to his performance in Uncut Gems. I was a huge Adam Sandler fan when I was growing up. Happy Gilmore came out when I was about 10, and from that point on, I was in the theater for all of his films right up until Anger Management. I think it was just a clean sweep up until that point, although I don't think I saw Punch Drunk Love in theaters because I heard it was a weird movie. Oh, youth and the follies of it. Now, I fell off the Sandler wagon after Anger Management because I was turning into a film snob and I didn't have time for whatever grown-up meets teenager poop joke antics that he was up to. And in between the release of Anger Management leading up to, I believe, The Ridiculous Six, there are 21 films that he released, and I think I saw 2 of them, Grown-Ups and Funny People, maybe? Both of those were not very good, and I think that's actually typical of his output during that time period. Just miss after critical miss. So then what happened? I basically worshipped Sandler as a kid, but then when I hit 18, it all went out the window and I just didn't care anymore. The only thing that I can really point to is a perceived lack in quality and also popular opinion about Sandler turning. He was no longer the entertainer that everyone loved. He was that guy who did 90s comedy in the mid-2000s when we were kind of over 90s comedy and we were looking for something new and different. And if you wanted something new and different, Adam Sandler was not the person you should be turning to. But he continued to make movies and they made money on occasion. And in 2015, I'm sure I'm not the only one who was shocked to learn that Netflix signed his Happy Madison Productions to an exclusive distribution deal, which apparently cost Netflix a bunch of money. I think personally my reaction was, oh my God, Netflix has so much money that they're just giving it away to everybody for exclusive rights. But then The Ridiculous Six comes out and Netflix tells us that it was watched more times in the first 30 days of its release than any other film on the platform at that time. At which point I think we can safely say Adam Sandler morphed into the Nickelback of films. Apparently everyone hates Nickelback, but people still sell out their shows and they're playing in big arenas. Personally, I think this points to a kind of shame that people feel when they watch newer Adam Sandler films, and they just don't want to admit to being a fan anymore. This goes beyond guilty pleasure in my mind. Now we flash forward to 2017 and 2019 and we have the Merowitz stories and then Uncut Gems coming out, and suddenly everyone loves Adam Sandler again. He's a real actor again. This is a fascinating trajectory, and when I first started thinking about it, I wondered if it just happened to follow my own personal development as a human being. The stuff that Sandler was making that was good for teenagers appealed to me when I was a teenager, and then when he kept making films for teenagers and I was no longer one, I stopped liking his films. And then when he gets to a moment in his career when he starts making more mature films, I am a more mature cinephile and I'm able to appreciate what he's actually doing. But I don't think my own personal experience is the best way to describe his career. What I love about Sandler's career trajectory is that it both confirms and goes against star theory, which is a segment of film theory which looks at stars and how they are commodities manufactured by institutions. In the case of film, that is film studios. This theory is typically used to describe stars from the golden age of Hollywood, because back then they would literally manufacture everything about a star from their look to their image. And while I wouldn't go so far as to say that that doesn't exist anymore, all you have to do is look at the modern K-pop sensation to see something that I think is analogous. Something interesting happens when you apply it to Adam Sandler, because he has had a somewhat rare career when you compare to other stars. One thing that's important to note about star theory is that it posits that when these stars are created, they're created in a way that makes them more relatable to the general public. It turns them into everymen. And in the case of Sandler, I think that's generally true. When he started out his career, he was playing this everyman kind of persona. He was an out-of-work hockey player in Happy Gilmore. He was a drummer in Airheads. He was a wedding singer in The Wedding Singer. So at this point, star theory holds up. He has been built up as an everyman, and his roles reflect that. But then we have the creation of Happy Madison Productions in 1999, and Sandler goes from being a subject of an institution to the leader of one, and so he is essentially in control of his own everymanness, or how he is perceived or how he is projected to the public. But even as his persona is now controlled by Sandler, he basically keeps the same one. He is still very much an everyman. So if you were to map the decline of Sandler's career, you could perhaps say that, oh, well, maybe he shifted from being an everyman to not, but we see that he stayed one. If you look at all of his roles from 2004 on, they typically fall in that category. And so what might be a better way of putting it is that the definition of an everyman changed over that time period, and Sandler's persona didn't shift to match. But now we get to Uncut Gems, and he is anything but an everyman in this film. Sandler plays a rich yet heavily indebted New Yorker who has a girlfriend in Manhattan, a wife in New Jersey, and he regularly tries to pawn off diamond-encrusted Furbies to NBA superstars. Hardly what anyone would call an everyman. So when we look at Uncut Gems from this perspective, that Sandler has essentially taken his everyman persona and traded it in for a different one, I start to wonder if his performance is actually being lauded, because it's something that we haven't really seen from him in a long, long time. And even if you were to go back to his other most lauded performance, Punch Drunk Love, he still is in a lot of ways the everyman in that film. He just happens to be an everyman in a Paul Thomas Anderson film. Now we're getting him as not an everyman in a Safdie Brothers film. And the degree to which his performance is praised is a function of that shift of not playing the everyman. I wonder how much that actually plays into it. What's also interesting to note is that a lot of what Sandler does in this film could actually just be seen as an exaggeration of roles that he's done in the past. When he is angry and he is yelling, you could easily think about his character in anger management, or really any of his roles where he has had an outburst of anger. And in fact, that's how I was reading his character and Sandler's performance while watching Uncut Gems. I just saw it as a further exaggeration of Adam Sandler's typical role, but placed in a situation that Sandler characters rarely find themselves in. But now that I've had some time to think about it, have it process in my mind, I realized that Sandler is playing a much, much different character, and he's essentially going against every performance and every instance of the everyman that he's played, and I think that's why this performance is actually so compelling. And to be clear, he's still very good in it. If you were to throw out his entire filmography before this, and this was just the debut of Adam Sandler, I think we would still be giving it the praise that it is getting. But when you put it in the context of his career, I think it becomes that much more interesting. I was really able to appreciate it once I was able to get by the notion that I had started with, that this is just Adam Sandler playing an exaggerated version of himself, or at least the persona that he has played in the past. I would say that this now for me ranks as one of the top performances that I have seen in all of 2019. I don't think it's better than Adam Driver in Marriage Story. I don't think any performance is as good as that one, but the Oscars are going to disagree with me on that, and that's just fine. But this discussion video is not about Adam Driver and how he's so much better than everybody else. This is a discussion about Uncut Gems, specifically how it relates to Adam Sandler's career. And I would love to know what you thought about this discussion and what really resonated with you when you watched Uncut Gems. The film came out on Netflix today, so you have an opportunity to see it. In fact, you should have watched it before watching this video. What are you doing here if you're watching this first? That said, we're at the end of the video. Please like it. If you like this little discussion, if you like what we do here on Cinemateq, there's going to be more videos like this coming out in the future, so please make sure to subscribe, hit the notification bell. We're gonna be doing a live stream for the Oscars. We're not live streaming the Oscars, we're live reacting to them. So don't come to me when you can't get a good pirate stream going. That's not my responsibility. Also, the Oscars start at like 8 o'clock, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be going about an hour early so I can talk about the fashion of the Oscars, which is something that I know a lot about. Actually, no, I don't. I know very little, but I will probably be drinking champagne and just talking shit about how celebrities look. So come on by early for that. And as you are probably aware, the Super Bowl is coming up in a couple of days. I will still be live streaming on Sunday. It'll just be much earlier because I'm having a Super Bowl party and I can't be live streaming when my guests are showing up. So look for me in the afternoon, sometime around 1 or 2 o'clock. Keep an eye on the Cinemateq Twitter. That's where I will be telling you when I will be going live. And just come on over and talk to me about films. We'll be talking about all the film news. If you want to talk about this video, we can do that too. We can do whatever you want within reason. So that's that. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.